In today's video, we have some NHL trade rumors focusing on the Edmonton Oilers, Pittsburgh Penguins, Chicago Blackhawks, and Columbus Blue Jackets. And we also have some other news, including some award winners, as well as some more coaching hirings. We'll jump into all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As you can see, we're once again back outdoors filming in beautiful downtown Fredericton, New Brunswick with the St. John River here behind me. I hope you're enjoying the scenery. Hope you're having a great day. Now let's jump into today's news. We have some updates on some dates involving the NHL Draft and Free Agency. Obviously, the NHL playoffs are moving right along. So right now, the latest possible date for the Stanley Cup to be awarded is October the 2nd. So they're looking at the draft being bumped up to October 6th and 7th. I know, a little odd, a little different having it in the middle of the week. So normally it's a Friday night or a Saturday, but it's a little different this year. Going to be October 6th and 7th. First round on the 6th, the rest of them on the 7th like usual. Free agency will either start 7 days after the Cup's awarded or October 9th, depending on what comes latest. So obviously, if the Cup goes to the latest possible date on October 2nd, 7 days later would be October 9th. If the Cup is awarded before that, it'll still be October 9th. So more than likely, it is going to be the 9th, which is, going to be about 3 days or so after the draft gets underway. Former Pittsburgh Penguins assistant coach Mark Recchi, who was let go along with several other members of the Penguins staff, has himself a new job. He is hired to be an assistant with Lindy Ruff with the New Jersey Devils. So obviously he won't have to travel all too far. So Recchi will now be a member of the Devil staff. We had an award announced last night. Bobby Ryan of the Ottawa Senators has been announced as the 2020 Bill Masterton Award Trophy. Of course, all three nominees this year had phenomenal stories, including Bobby Ryan as well as Oscar Lindblom, who battled cancer, and Stephen Johns, who had a lot of concussion issues that he overcame to come back after being out of the NHL for almost 2 years. So obviously Bobby Ryan wins the award. I know a lot of people felt Oscar should have won since he went through something probably a little more life-threatening, but in Ryan's case, it was certainly somewhat life-threatening as well. I do caution you, though, that I think that the votes were cast quite a while back before we knew that Lindblom was completed his treatments and before he came back to play. So obviously I think that played a role in things, and I think Lindblom's likely going to be a contender for that award next year. Of course, he did make it back and play in the NHL playoffs, which was great for him. So clearly lots of great stories in the NHL, which is not something we're usually used to. We usually end up with one slam dunk story that is pretty much going to win, and a few other ones. But obviously in this case we had several great stories around the league this season. Now, in regards to today's NHL trade rumors, we have some information from the Edmonton Journal suggesting that they have sources indicating the Oilers are on the search for a goaltender. It looks as though veteran Mike Smith likely won't be back. Obviously, Mikko Koskinen is getting paid a decent amount of money. There was some trade chatter earlier involving the Oilers and a player like Matt Murray of Pittsburgh, but I really think that contract he's going to be getting as an RFA is going to be too much for them. I don't really see that being a fit. So the more likely scenario is that the Oilers end up going shopping through free agency. There's going to be a ton of goaltenders, including many veteran guys who they could probably sign for a relatively inexpensive contract on a 1 or 2 year deal. Even a guy like Cam Talbot, I know is probably unlikely to go back where he's there, but he's a prime example of that. Somebody they can probably sign to a short-term deal, without paying a ton of money. So obviously, the Oilers definitely need some upgrades that way. I mean, they don't have a ton of cap space, but they do have some areas of the team that they need to address. They are likely going to be making some moves in the blue line. This same article also references the fact that Kris Russell is likely a trade or a buyout candidate. I think Russell could be bought out if they can't find a trade for him. He's down to 1 year left on his deal, which certainly makes that a little bit more feasible. And there's been previous rumors as well indicating that they're likely going to trade a couple of their defensemen, or at least one, between guys like Larson and Clefbaum. And I know some of the guys from the Journal, including a guy like David Staples, indicated before he would not be shocked if a guy like Clefbaum was traded, if they can find their right forward coming back, because obviously they want to make room for some of their younger defensemen like Bouchard and Broberg. They already have guys like Caleb Jones who have proven that they deserve a spot as well. So I think we're going to see the Oilers have a little bit of a younger blue line and try to find some other people to go mix in with the forward group to improve their wing depth. Debatable whether or not Jesse Puljujarvi is traded for picks or if he signs and comes back to be a player. Obviously, he's going to have to earn his spot if he does sign and come back to the Oilers organization, but he's also a big question mark as well. And they're not too far away from having Ryan Nugent-Hopkins being an unrestricted free agent. I know they have to consider his future, how he fits in the salary cap. Could he possibly be moved? I mean, there's no rumors linking a trade for him right now. I don't think that's a player they want to move, but it will be complicated for them to be able to keep him in the mix just from a cash salary cap perspective. Obviously, they don't have a ton of room when you have so much money committed to guys like McDavid and Draisaitl, and he's already making $6 million himself. That certainly does complicate things as well. So his future certainly has a bit of a question mark. I know the next team we're going to take a look at here is the Columbus Blue Jackets. I know they have been linked to obviously looking for a number 2 center. That's not a huge surprise. Guys like that they're looking for, sometimes difficult to trade for. Obviously, they are coming from an area of strength on their blue line. They have a player like Josh Anderson that's likely available. And I know personally you couldn't help but maybe wonder if they would talk to the Oilers about a guy like Nugent Hopkins, who for the most part has been a center in his career, but sometimes does play on the wing with the Oilers as well. Because of their other centers the Oilers have, he can often play that left wing position as well. So, but with the Columbus, he could be a center. He could be the number 2 guy behind Pierre-Luc Dubois and certainly add some much needed depth there. Obviously, the Columbus showed in the playoffs they can play with a team like the Leafs, but they could certainly use some more offense if they want to be able to go a little bit further and deeper into the playoffs and have any shot at being a contender. Now, of course, the other thing that links the Oilers and the Blue Jackets is that the Jackets are rumored to be moving a goalie. Obviously, we've talked before about Korpisalo and Elvis Merzlikins, one of the two being traded. I think possibly Korpisalo will be the easier one to trade, but based on how he played in the playoffs, I'm sure they might go the other way. It's difficult to say, but either one of them have shorter-term deals. They're not making a ton of money. Maybe they consider moving a goalie to the Oilers for a player like Nugent Hopkins. I'm not sure if that's a work trade that would exactly fit one for one. It might have some other pieces, but it's something that they could at least consider talking about because they do have pieces that each other needs in that regard. But Columbus could also look to a team like the Habs. Obviously, Max Domi could be that guy. He seemed to be quite content playing a top 6 center role with Montreal. Now he's not so happy after things changed. Not real happy with being in the bottom 6 or playing on the wing. So I know many feel that Domi's time in Montreal is up. We've heard Pierre Maguire. I know it's debatable how connected he is, but he just been around the league a long time as broadcasting. He said he feels Domi's done as well. That's the latest comments. We've heard others say it too. So if he is traded, you'd have to think a team like Columbus could be a real likely destination given their need for a center iceman where he could play up higher in the lineup, which is what he's looking for. I mean, they're not the only team as well, but obviously those are a couple of examples of players that Columbus could target based on the reports of what they're out there looking for right now. There's an article today from The Athletic talking about Penguins defenseman Kris Letang as well, which I found interesting. Letang talking about the fact that he'd love to remain with Pittsburgh and finish his career, retire a Penguin, but he does not feel that that's going to happen. He's been telling teammates that he feels he's going to be traded, if not during this offseason, and sometime during the season that's coming. He feels his time in Pittsburgh might be coming to an end, and that GM Jim Rutherford likely is trying to move him. Now, we've heard reports before that Rutherford's certainly considering shaking up some of the core pieces of that team. And it's not going to be Crosby or Malkin. So Letang would be another prime candidate who could be. He does have a form of a no trade on his contract. He's making over $7 million. And even though he's been, relatively healthy more recently, he has a long history of health concerns from the past. So I think trading Letang would be very difficult, and it would be unlikely that a team would take him on, at least with that full cap hit, without the Penguins retaining anything. So I'm not sure that that's a trade that we're going to see happen. I'm sure that Rutherford very well could be exploring the possibilities. I don't see him making that deal without taking back something of substance for another contract that might not be the most favorable either. I mean, Letang's been had a really good career. He's been a pretty good defenseman. Obviously getting a little bit older, but still somewhat productive. But I'm not sure that he's in too much jeopardy. But it goes to show you about what he's likely being told between the team and his agent, that Rutherford likely is maybe looking at making more changes than we possibly realize. So could we see Kris Letang moved by the Penguins? He seems to think it's a possibility. Where do you think he could end up? Give me some potential mock trades if you think it's possible down in the comments. Now, I also want to take a look at the Chicago Blackhawks here as well. They're certainly a team who needs to cut some salary and find some money to pay some of their top young players, including one of the Rookie of the Year candidates, Dominic Kubalik, who had a 30-goal rookie campaign, was pretty good in the playoffs as well. So, I mean, he obviously needs to get paid, get signed longer term. He certainly worked out quite nicely after coming over from Europe. Obviously, he's been a big part of their team. Obviously, they got Dylan Strome as well. There's been some talk about Strome's future in Chicago, if he can be traded or if he gets signed and stays with them. He had great chemistry with Alex DeBrincat, who he played with in junior when he first arrived. Last year was a bit of a setback. I think they'd be giving up a little early depending on what they traded him for. So I do think it's a pretty good chance that he does re-sign and come back. Could he be traded? It is a possibility. But the Hawks showed here in these play-in series against Edmonton that they still have somewhat what it takes. So some of our older players like Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane can still play at a high level. So obviously, like, Stan Bowman might be making some moves to try to go for it. I mean, clearly a couple of the main guys you could look to make on the move here to find the money to pay their younger players would be guys like Olli Määttä, Zach Smith possibly. I mean, Zach Smith is a prime candidate for a potential buyout if he can't be traded. Obviously, he had another injured-riddled season, so he might be difficult to move. On the case of Määttä, though, many felt Määttä was a prime candidate to be moved along, but he actually had a pretty good playoff. But they do have a lot of young D that they're trying to make room for in the Hawks organization here as well. So difficult to say, but I think based on how he played in the playoffs, he would have more value for trade now than he would have before. So maybe there is more likelihood that Olli Määttä could find himself here on the move yet again. And then another big question when it comes to Chicago as well is the health of Brent Seabrook and Andrew Shaw. If they end up on long-term injury reserve again for a bulk of the season, or at least to start, that's going to buy them some time and give them some more flexibility and to see, they can use that as cap relief to kind of go over temporarily while they make other moves. And of course, there's Corey Crawford as well. Will he return? There's a pretty good indication based on all the reports we've had previously that he likely does come back to Chicago, but hard to say exactly what he gets paid. But the big thing around Chicago, I think we're going to see probably a guy like Olli Määttä, Zach Smith, probably not return. And then they might have to move out another piece or two and really determine the future of a guy like Dylan Strome. But the report I'm talking about there comes from NBC Sports Chicago, referencing the fact that they need to find money basically to pay their young players, which is certainly a valid point, but a lot of that is going to be dependent on the health, like I said, of Seabrook and Shaw. If the Hawks decided they wanted to move a more prominent player and a bigger salary, though, you'd have to think a guy like Brendan Saad would be the main target, which this article references as well. Kind of less likely, given the fact that he might not have a ton of value right now, but obviously Saad's had his name in the rumor mill for pretty much the part of the last year, off and on. So he's another guy who at times has proven to be a good goal scorer, but certainly hasn't been as productive recently as he was a few years back. So he's another player Chicago could try to move on from to try to find some salary to get these younger players under contract. But either way, I think the Hawks have a pretty good future here. I think they have a good mix of veterans and youth to see if they can get back in playoff contention next year. So that is all your updates for today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and we can discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.